Welcome to Everlasting Talk.
Hello, this is Ever from Everlasting Talk. Before I continue, please check Everlasting Talk on Instagram, Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube. Today, we're talking about Alfred Nobel and it's a soulful history of his life. Let's get started. Alfred Nobel was a Swedish chemist, engineer, inventor, businessman, and philanthropist. Uh, Better known for the Nobel prizes such as physics, chemistry, medicine, literature, economics, and peace. Born on October 21st, 1833, in Stockholm, Sweden, to Emanuel Nobel and Caroline Nobel, and one of four boys. It was a family of scientists and engineers. After many failures from his father Emanuel, he moved the entire family to St. Petersburg, Russia. After a while, Emmanuel Nobel's inventions became more and more popular. His dad actually helped create the torpedo. So with that, everything going on, the patent, all that, his family was back to being successful and rich. After, like I said earlier, the dad lost a lot of the money, moved to Russia. He ended up going to some of the best schools. He actually learned, no, I mean, Alfred learned Swedish, French, Russian, and other languages as well. He remained unmarried throughout his life, but some biographers note that he was in love several times, so he never really felt well through marriages and stuff like that. He studied under Nikolai Zenin, who was a chemist, and Anciano Sorbanio, I can say that name, who would go on to invent nitroglycerin in 1846. Nobel became interested in controlling it as a usable explosive. That's what I mean, explosive history, right? I'm gonna go into more detail. At age 18, he went to United States and studied under John Erickson, who designed the USS Monitor. Um, Eventually, Nobel would patent the gas meter in 1857 in the UK and the US. And in the meantime, his family declared bankruptcy as they produced armaments for the Crimean War. Not that Crimean War, the first one, would last between 1853 to 1856. His family was in the business of like creating weapons and war products, so it's kind of, yeah. I'll tell you why, about his history. Nobel would eventually invent the detonator in 1863 and was designing the blasting cap in 1865. After a explosion accident that occurred in a factory which killed his brother, he would fund a company where he could isolate doing explosives instead of having it in residential areas or like a lot of people around. Because obviously the with his brother, um, in 1867 he invented the dynamite. So he was able to get nitroglycerin controlled, and he patented it in the U.S. and the U.K. around the world. Eventually, he would go ahead and invent glatinite, which is a more stable form than dynamite, so it's more protective and better to use. And in 1887, patented balsanite, which is a smokeless propellant used in explosives. In his lifetime, he issued about 555 patents and had 90 armaments factories around Europe and parts of the world. The Nobel Prize was created after his death, um, from money he left behind, because in 1888, like I mentioned, his brother dying, the newspaper falsely told, obviously, falsely said that Alfred died, and but in reality, like I said, it was his brother in email. And in the obituary, they didn't he didn't like the fact that he didn't want to be remembered as a merchant of death, because pretty much all his inventions were, explosives, and like the detonator and the dynamite and glycine and bacillite. So he didn't want to be remembered in that way. So what he did is like I said, like upon his death, he would u- they would 94% of his money would go to create the Nobel Prize, the prizes I mentioned. Um, so that's probably very important later on as well. But when he was alive, he was accused by the French government for treason, as he sold balsanite to Italy, causing him to flee to Italy in 1891. So he was being sought out by the French government. And treason at that time was they would execute you. So yeah, he definitely had a good reason to live. Um, He would eventually die on December 10th, 1896, of a stroke in Italy. And upon his death, 94% of his wealth went to fund the Nobel Prizes. Um, Many people called him the Merchant of Death, inventing, like I said, tools of war. It's controversial actually when you think about it, because he did one of the prizes that he had on there was a Nobel Peace Prize, which is given out to people who have contributed to causing peace and helping peace. Sometimes controversially, some of those choices, but they're actually controlled by the government of Norway. So he's Swedish, but somehow the Norwegian government was able to elect the Nobel cabinet, who selects the vote. But it's controversial because his method of making that money, that all that money was through war. His family through the Crimean War of 1853 to 1856. His invention of dynamite, the blasting cap, detonator, balsadite, glatzonite. All these armament factories he had, all these patents he had as well. So he was, it's kind of ironic or strange. I mean, it's up to you how you look at him, but I think he did really good work. But just ironic that most of his wealth came from armaments and war, and there's a peace prize, Nobel Peace Prize, which is kind of weird. But yeah, I mean, everybody has their own opinion. Obviously, they called him other names as well. Instead of the Merchant of Death, they call him a philanthropist. He did give money. He wasn't religious. I think when I looked him up, he still gave money to the church though, so that was important. Um, but yeah, and also the other prizes, it's still around to this day. The Nobel prizes, sometimes it's through controversy of who receives it. But anyways, yeah, so like a lot of the stuff is still being used. Dynamite was used for many different reasons, war and coal mines and all that stuff. But if you really want to look more into detail about his life, I recommend these sources that I looked up, that I used for this. There's a documentary called Mr. Dynamite, 1863. So every time you hear Dynamite, you know it's for him. He's Mr. Dynamite. There's another one called it's a movie called No Greater Love from 1952. There's a book called Alfred Nobel, The Loneliest Millionaire by Evernoth. I can't say the last name. And Alfred Nobel by J.E. Jorpis. There's some good books and movies you can watch about him. But yeah, I mean, like I said, this is Alfred Nobel. Obviously, you have your own opinion on him. You know, um, about his history, about what he did, and how he came obtained his wealth, and what he used with it. Obviously, it's doing good things, but it was just my opinion that he did. A lot of his products did go to war, and a lot of the deaths that happened in the 20th century. So yeah, I mean, this is Ever from Everlasting Talk. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Alfred Nobel. On the next episode, we're going to talk about John Hanson. Many say he was the first president of the United States, but I'll go into more detail. Thank you guys so much. As ever, make sure to check me out or Everlasting Talk on Instagram, Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube. And thank you so much, and have a good one. See you guys. Bye.